Hey everybody, and welcome to my live. I am Donette, and on this channel, I talk about motivational stuff. I talk primarily about moving back to Guyana and my transitional process in doing so. And I talk about anything educational, things that can actually impact our lives in a positive way. So, welcome to my live once again. So, today is motivation and wine. Tuesday. So I I wanted to talk a little bit about um, going back home and some of the experiences that some of us would have had. And I'm always having this conversation with my husband about how different things were in Guyana when I used to go when you were a kid, of course, and then of course later on as I would visit. I experienced things that were completely different than what I'm used to. Sorry. Yeah, than what I'm used to. So there's a culture shift that happened in Guyana, and I mean the culture shift was so vast that it kind of took me aback. And there then this culture shift was on so many levels. Socially, things were different. Um, the way people accept things were different. It grew different. The way they treated you, completely different from how it used to be. Um, it's just really shifted to me towards a very negative. You know, I don't know. I guess I can say it's just not a positive thing. And so when you look at everything and you kind of consult your experiences that you used to have growing up or going back home, you see that the dynamics are completely different. Um, you're dealing with the same situations, but the way the approaches towards dealing with it is completely different. Don't know what happened over the years. I don't know if it's a matter of, and I would like to blame technology for this, definitely, or put some of the blame on technology. I would like to probably put some of the blame on, the greed of humanity, the selfishness of humanity, the fact, the unappreciativeness of humanity, uh, competitive spirits. Um, just really, really sad behaviors. So, where am I going with all this stuff today? So, let me explain what I'm always my gripe. My gripe is basically things have shifted so much. There's a culture shift, there is a shift in terms of, like I said, the way people react to you, the way people treat you, the way things are in Guyana is completely different from what I used to know. So let me take you back. So I remembered going back home. I remember growing up home, and then I remembered coming abroad, and then I remember going back home. And the vast difference in terms of how people, let me go back to my grandpa actually. When my grandpa first came here in the very early 80s. He was here in the 60s or 70s, I believe, in Chicago. And then I guess he just couldn't deal with America. So he went, and I could imagine back then it was more racial strife and so on. So he had gone back home to Guyana. And so when he did come back, though, he came back permanently. I think he had just came to visit back then. So he came back permanently. And he came back in that must have been the early 80s, maybe 82, 80, 81, 82, or something like that. Um, just remembered when he came home, it was such a big deal. The fact that we relished in every footstep that he took, in every conversation that he would have had, telling us about this place called America. We relished in the fact that he he was building this new life in a different place, and our imagination was left wandering all over the place because we have no idea what this place looks like except from the stories that he would tell. And these stories were very real. They were very poignant. They were absolutely beautiful stories, but yet still he would tell you that America is not an easy place. He would always say that it's not an easy place, but if if you're grounded, if you have an education, if you do what you need to do, you'll be all right. Those are the things that he would just tell us all the time. But he had wonderful stories to tell us, so we would sit back. Everybody would gather around. I don't know how many of you remember these days, but everybody would gather around and they would listen to these stories from the foreigners. And they would appreciate it. They would appreciate just seeing them when they came home. There was everybody house that you used to, that they could go to eat some food and to relax and to, they just want to see you. They didn't even care what you brought them. The fact is that they just wanted to see you for you. They just wanted to make sure that you're okay. They wanted to hug you. They wanted to laugh with you and to talk with you and to hear of your stories, your successes. And if there is any hard times, tell us, whatever it is, we want to know about this place called America. And of course, I don't know how many of you envision this, but I've heard this story over and over again. The vision of America is that it was, back then, at least, it was paved with, the streets were paved with gold. And, so the imagination ran wild, from these stories that were told. They never told you it was laden with gold, but you just kind of imagine that that's what it was. Um, and we would just really appreciate every single person. Borrows would come in as well, and you would appreciate those borrows because at that time, I don't know how many of y'all are sitting in here during Burnham time, and we can go back to when times were really hard, when he banned everything in the country. I was still there. Yep, I was still there at the time, and so I remembered absolutely vividly some of the things that were happening during that time. And even though I am a person who is very progressive in terms of my thinking, and I could see his progressive thoughts and what he meant for the country, I can also see that there are times when we have to be careful. We implement strategies because you can't just say, this is what we're going to do and then go ahead and do it. But mind you, as much as I don't want to get into politics, just so that we can say that Burnham implemented one of the most powerful education system. I think about 80% or 80 something percent of us are either um, college educated, as well as trade school educated. And so most of Ghana, and also graduated from high school. So his educational system that he put in place is absolutely unmatched in terms of I think in terms of the Caribbean. And he did a wonderful job with that. I think that the motivation to do well, um, and him wanting us to stand on our own feet, 2 feet, was absolutely, just I don't think it was a novel thing, but it was definitely something that he must have learned abroad and that he wanted to implement in the country that he would rule. There are many things that I can say that I applaud him for, because I benefited off that system. So when I came here, uh, I came with that knowledge. I came with that sense of self. I came understanding that my blackness wasn't a bad thing. I came understanding that my darkness was actually something that was beneficial. My darkness wasn't something to be put down, or it wasn't something to not. So I had a firm understanding of who I was as a black person, and that comes directly from Burnham, and it comes directly from knowing and understanding your place in this world. And he understood, and he was before his time in a lot of ways. So when people argue certain things, I can bring my 2 cents in from what I remembered. Majority of the stuff um, When you remember back then, you will say, oh my goodness, well, this was taken away, that was taken away, and you can see it from a bad perspective. But looking forward and breaking it down as you get older, as you get to understand politics, as you get to understand the importance of education, as you get to understand the importance of standing on your own two solid feet and making a difference in this world, and understanding changes, implementing changes, and changes that were positive, and changes that are good for any society, right? I think that now I can see the breadth and the depth of where he was coming from. Do I think that he went about it all the right way? You guys may have your own opinion on that. I honestly don't think so. I think that the way that he went about it was harsh, and that it could have been done a lot better. Cutting off countries, not bringing in this, not stopping borrows from coming, doing all that. People almost going towards famine, and I can tell you that Linden was really struggling. I'm pretty sure the country folks were okay, the farmers were okay, and I still hear the debate between the two races in terms of who was suffering more and who wasn't suffering. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, y'all were all suffering, so stop the crap, right? Because that's just a bunch of nonsense. The only people that probably weren't suffering are the farmers, and the people who had money, of course, and the government. People who work directly with Burnham. But I think for the most part, a lot of people suffered during that time. And when I say suffered, I mean like literally didn't have, and had to stand in line and so on. So for me, I remember those days, and I remember them very vividly. But again, when I look at things from an adult perspective, an educated perspective, I can see where his points were, and I can see all the great things that he's had it to the country. And if he had not done those things, then there wouldn't be, the doctors and the lawyers and the journalists and all the people that came out of Guyana, and whether they were educated home in fully, or they came abroad and continue on with their education, we were well prepared before we even came to this country or to our new countries. So when they got us, they didn't get us, as dummies. Or the majority of us that they got were people who were well educated. I'm on the plane, and I help people all the time, and not necessarily from my race, right? But I help people all the time fill out their paperwork on the planes going home, because that's a generation of people who probably worked on the farms that just didn't get educated. So of course those people still exist. And so I will take some older ladies paperwork for her passport information, because you have to fill it out when you're on the plane, um, for all her address and everything. And sometimes it's an older man, and I will help again, because I can see that, and I know that there is a difference in terms of, there are people who just work the farm sometimes and never really went to school. There are people who just dropped out of school, period, and didn't do a darn thing. So I'm not saying that those people don't exist. In every society they do. However, what I do want to mention, what I do want to focus on, though, is the realities of it is that most of us came well prepared for the new world that we entered into, and we were able to take those skill sets that we'd already had from back there, and kind of definitely utilize it here. And of course, in our new land, we have come to be even more. Um, well, just abreast of everything else in terms of our advancement in education, or the degrees that we've earned, and so on and so forth. But had we not had that foundation, would that still be possible? So I think he had a lot of good points, and education is one of the key things. And the healthcare system, having a free healthcare system was, even though it's not the best, it was still a good initiative to establish. Um, so I'm just saying that things have changed. So there's a space where we move from total appreciation for people, and just camaraderie, to I don't care if you are here or not. And if not that, what did you bring me? Kind of, like that hand, that society that just kind of put their hands out. They have no concern about how you're really doing. They have no concern for how, even if you're scraping your knee in America or Canada or Europe or wherever, whichever part you are in the world, they have no concern for it. Their only concern is what they can get. Kind of like it's so disturbing. Honestly, it is. And this is family members or people that we know. I watched this girl video a couple of months ago, and she was talking about her sister sending her some stuff, baby stuff, I guess. And she started to, cuss out in the video to tell her sister she was so embarrassed because she sent her dirty baby clothes, this, that, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how true it is. I personally wouldn't send anyone dirty stuff. When I buy my things to send, I send things that are brand new. Or when I did my program, my students, they live out here in Miami, so the summer is always here. So their clothes, and they're young college kids, and trust me, they spend money on their clothes. So I used to ask them for clothes from their little sisters, their little younger siblings of whatever age, and then also from themselves, things that they no longer needed, and I would send those things home. So and then also we used to sort through just to make sure that things are clean and they're in good shape, and if they're not, then we would throw it out. But she started to cuss out, like I said, about her receiving this baby clothes that was so dirty, and that it wasn't washed or whatever it was. And well, maybe you need some new friends, or you need some new you need some new I can't say siblings, but definitely if someone is going to send you stuff like that, it shows you what they think about you. That's the first thing I should say. But the second thing I would say is that I don't know what those clothes look like. She could just be saying that, and it could be that maybe she just didn't appreciate something about whatever her sister did, or other relationships within that same things that she's going on with. The argument back and forth that some family members would have. So it could be other things that went on as well. I don't know, but the reality of it is that for her to had come and kind of bash every single Guyanese American for not sending her stuff, whether it's her sister, and then she was talking about everybody, like literally, she was just cussing everybody out, and she said all sort of stuff about Guyanese Americans. Or Guyanese foreigners, whatever you want to say, Canadians, Guyanese, Europeans. But it was just such a you know stanza back kind of thing for me, because it was like, how dare you? If someone has sent you something, please appreciate it. Because I'll tell you one thing about us here in America. The one thing that we do is that we give a lot. We give each other a lot of stuff. And the other thing that we do is that we also say thanks a lot. We appreciate people when they do stuff for us. I don't care how much I have. When somebody do something for me, I feel appreciated. I'm thankful. I have lots of white friends, people who are colleagues or whatever, I would say, not friends, but colleagues. I have Hispanic colleagues. I have all sort of people around me, people I know. I mean, whoever it is, we're giving and we're taking and we're saying thank you and we're appreciating. What is this thing about this deserving attitude that so many Guyanese people have? Like they think that you should give to them, and if you don't give to them, then if all of a sudden there becomes a problem. And I just personally feel offended, when people, because I am a giver, natural giver. So I feel offended when people are out there acting like if you have to give them everything. And if you just happen to drop the ball once or twice, wow, you're the worst enemy ever. Another girl did a video. She says, she's cussing Guyanese people out, Guyanese American people out. And she's talking about, we don't want nothing from y'all. Y'all this, y'all that, and blah 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 blah, and we don't depend on you. So I'm like, wait a minute. The last I check, all right, y'all be the ones who always want something, and people are always sending. That's why the Western Union in Guyana is always full. That's why the MoneyGram in Guyana is always full. So talk about us over here, but you over there on that line every couple of weeks waiting on your money because someone is sending it to you, and you're not appreciating the fact that somebody worked for that money. Somebody had to go to work for 2, 3, 4 hours in order to give something to you, send you that $50, or send you that $100, or whatever it is. Some of us send hundreds and get no thanks. When I say there was a culture shift, y'all, there is a culture shift. The unappreciativeness is just stinking, and it's sad. And my rebuttal to these people who sit up there and talk about Guyanese Americans over here in or wherever it is that we are in the diaspora, we work our asses off. We work our asses off night and day. We don't go to sleep at 12 o'clock like you do back home, because you can take a break. Some of us are, because that's the culture. We stay up all the way until 2 o'clock in the morning. We go 2 jobs sometimes. So, this knocking on people when they don't give you something, it's sad. So, this whole culture shift is really, really disheartening to someone like me who love to give, but see people who take and don't even appreciate. And then get online on Facebook, on WhatsApp, send these videos around just to say how stinking, greedy Guyanese Americans are. There is the other video, which I thought the guy thought that he was funny, and in a way it was, but he was talking in this video. He was talking, this is right when Corona started. And I know many of you have seen this particular video where he was packing the barrel to send to America because apparently America is running out of food. listen, listen, y'all have to understand something. America is a huge place. And when I say huge, it's large. I have traveled the South, I've traveled North, I've traveled the Midwest, and I haven't even touched a quarter of America. When our kids were younger, we used to travel every summer throughout this country, and I haven't even touched not even a quarter of these lands, or drive into places to discover what's really happening. Sometimes you're just passing by the highway and you're going, okay, well, we're in this state, we're in that state, we're in this city, and so on and so forth. There's over 327 million people that live in this country. We don't need a barrel to be sent to us for the and because we have social systems that are set up for people who are going through hard times. So I didn't take that lightly when he did that, because even though people thought it was funny, I didn't think it was funny. I thought that it was insulting and that he meant it in a certain way, because I felt like as though he wants to say that, okay, y'all hungry in America. So we're going to say, listen, man, we could never go hungry in this country. We can't. There are too many organizations that are out here. There's a social system that is set up for us in case we, things happen. So whether that's a welfare system or any kind of community program, the church, some organization somewhere, there's always somebody doing something. All right. So there's no reason for you to be condescending in your remarks to say that you're sending us barrels because we apparently going hungry in America. This is all through the pandemic. And I'm just thinking to myself, I wonder if they think all of America is starving. Because what they don't realize is that the people that they see on television It's like this bit amount of Americans that is actually going through compared to everybody else who still have a job, compared to everybody else who's still making their money, compared to everybody else who's still not getting put out. Yeah, because the news show the worst of everything. And then they have this thing with somehow people live in basements and this and that and blah. Listen, people live in basements in New York City for sure. Not denying that, but the way they say it is like if it's some sort of, derogatory thing that someone, well, if that's what they can afford, that's what they can afford. If you remember when I came on here and I was talking about the fact that there's nothing wrong with my life when I'm going home. And the reason why I reference that is because somehow these people have it in a lot of people have it in their minds that there's something wrong. That okay, Americans are basically we're suffering, so we're coming back to Guyana because we hear about this oil or whatever it is. Listen, oil is like I know for a lot of us who have studied the agenda of a lot of these countries, and what has happened as a result of oil. I mean, it could be one of the most worst thing that can happen to countries globally, when you look at it from a global perspective. It could be the worst thing if it isn't handled correctly. And that's one of the reasons why the politics in Guyana is getting even more nastier, of course. Because and we see it in Africa, we see it in Venezuela, we see it in other parts of the Caribbean where the oil came and people are still worse off than even when they started out. So for some reason, this whole concept that Guyanese people are over here starving and we need to run back home, and then there's this mudslinging about who live where and who live there and this and that. Have you ever? I mean, a lot of people who come here, what I want to encourage you guys to do is get your butts out of New York City, because I think your concept of life in America is New York, and New York is filled with we call it concrete jungle. And it's not only in New York. I think you just surround yourself in Brooklyn where there isn't that large landscapes and big homes. I mean, there are plenty of big homes, in Long Island. There are plenty of big homes in Staten Island, Jersey, all those places. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about people who live in apartments, literally live in apartments. And those places are pretty small. There are plenty of big homes in Queens and so on and so forth, right? But when you want to see homes, like large homes, come down to the south. You're talking about people who live. Listen, I have a house in Georgia, and my house is small compared to what all my uncle and my aunties and my brother-in-law, and I mean everybody live well. Literally, I mean, when I tell you they live well, they live well. You go there, you don't even know which room to choose. I have an auntie, two aunties that live next door to one another. They live in mansions in Georgia. And I'm not bragging about these people, but what I'm saying to you is that stop talking about people as though we're struggling here or suffering here or something like that, because that's just not true. People, I'm sure there are people who have hard lives because obviously they, maybe they don't have the education or whatever. So I'm not proposing to you that every single person, but the way Guyanese people talk is like if all of them Guyanese people in America somehow they're just below level. Like, where did you get that from? In fact, every single Guyanese person I know, family members, my family happens to be in terms of lineage, some very successful people. My husband's family, very successful people. So I don't know where they get this attitude from that somehow we're here suffering. And I just feel like I resent to those people who first don't appreciate you when you come and you bring them something. They think you should have brought them something else. Or if you come and you happen to not bring them something, then they feel like, okay, well, why did you show up? Where is the relationship? Where's the camaraderie? Where is the friendship? Where is the cousinship, the sistership, the auntieship? Where's all those stuff? Like where did those things go? The true relations between people. So now all of a sudden, we don't even appreciate people for who they are. And it's pretty sad. And so for those people who are sitting up there, and I replied back to this one young girl who talked about, what Guyana, Guyanese don't depend on this and don't depend on that. Man, I had to tell her, I said, let me say something. Guyanese back home have always depended on overseas people. I don't remember any time in history that that hasn't happened. When we were there, we depended on my grandpa, for example. When they went back home, they depended on us. And now we are here doing what we have to do for cousins, for aunties, for my grandma, for whomever it is. So don't sit up there and talk about us people, you know, so called American people who living in basements and living with rats and apparently, listen, man, these people got some jokes. They make my Guyanese come out because it's like, yo, are y'all serious? So I had to reply back to that particular young lady. And I told her, listen, we don't have to be enemies because we're coming from two different spaces, right? But certainly you shouldn't be mudslinging at people and the same hands that is actually feeding you. Guyana is always dependent on its foreigners to uplift the society. 'Cause Guyana, let's face it, Guyana is not a place where it's largely about what am I thinking now? About tourism. Guyanese tourism or Guyana tourism is its own people. It is its own people. So we are the ones that have always visited home. We are the ones that's always bigging up our country. We are the ones that's always brought Guyana to the world, right? So Guyana don't have a huge tourism system. It's now developing a lot more within the last couple of years. I've seen more push towards it. So that's good. However, those homes were built from monies that were sent from abroad. Majority of them. It wasn't the local people that just build their stuff. All right. Because of course we know that they would take longer based on salary. And I'm not telling you or knocking on anybody, but I'm telling you the reality of it. There were people who sent monies down, who built those homes, who always kept upkeep their families, who did certain things. So the dependency was always there, and it's never left. And so I feel personally responsible for saying something to all my Guyanese folks over in America who work their asses off every single day and who uphold their responsibility to help their family members back home and to not be jaded by these idiots. I was looking at a video the other day. The guy over there, and he's interviewing some folks, and well, he's actually doing his vlog, and he met up with a couple of folks, and he says, hey, would you like to say anything to anybody in America or Canada or whatever, anyone? And their reaction, this is how blatant, and disrespectful it is. So don't think we don't peep y'all. You know what I mean? We do peep you, and we know what you're doing, and we hear what you're doing. So his reaction was, um, oh, I just want to say hi to my friends in wherever, Linden, or I want to say hi to my friends in Sophia, or and then they called another name of a parish or whatever it is, right, of a city. Totally, ignoring the guy's call for, do you want to say something to someone in foreign? And I'm not assuming that everybody have a good relationship with someone overseas. But I'm just thinking to myself, those are the same people that at some point benefited from someone overseas. But apparently, maybe they're pissed off because it didn't go their way all the time. We're not picking up money off of trees, folks, right? We're not. We have responsibilities, just like, well, more than you do, because you don't have half the responsibilities that we do. Um, but I also saw a social shift in even how kids are, the disrespect that kids can perform, the fact that old ladies don't get help with their bags anymore as much as they used to. They'll see an old lady with her stuff, and they want a little money before they even carry that bag. I don't know how many of you remember that time when the old lady would never ever have to carry that bag up the hill, or never have to worry about somebody will come and grab mom's, let me help you, come and take her bag, take it inside, take it to her door, or whatever I should say, or to her fence at least. Something wrong with that. See little kids cussing and going on. Years ago, when I saw the party scene came to Guyana, this dancehall scene came to Guyana, I already knew it was a detriment to the society, because the young people will now hold on to music and dirty music and all this stuff, rather than focusing on school. And I wasn't wrong, because within the 10-year span, you saw the shift that took place between music and our young people, and where their focus was now. And again, we're not assuming that everyone is that way. We have a whole bunch, thank God, of our young people who are doing well. I talk about them as well. And they're, being very productive citizens of society and of the world. And we have them doing their exams and scoring well. We have them focusing and so on. Even though we don't have jobs for that, to provide for these young people, they're still doing their part, and so they tried their best to do whatever. But then there is this whole another or other population who has really just segued into lawlessness and doing whatever it is that they feel like, and not being productive as much as they should be. But then again, how can you blame anyone who really, they already know there's nothing out there, they can't get a job, they can't, what are they going to do? So what they do is they party, they drink, they do whatever it is they want to, they do lawlessness. And thank God, but that's a small population of folks that gets into that. So that way we don't have an entire society of people running around doing nonsense. um, Anyways, this shift that has occurred in terms of behavior or mannerism, in terms of spirit of unappreciativeness and so on and so forth. I do hope people who come to this video will look at it straight through, because they need to understand that we do hear you, we do see you, and we are not very kind. We're not appreciating your comments about us, because don't bite the hands that feed you, kind of thing. Because yeah, y'all may be doing better today, but just remember we are in a more advanced society, and we can do better for you than the Chinese people can bring to your Guyana. You understand? Because them Chinese stuff that they have there, trust me, I buy them dollar store stuff when I know that I ain't gonna well use it for too long, because obviously it's not very not anything that you would, it's not quality or anything like that. But not knocking it, but just trying to show you, just watch your steps and watch how you treat people, and don't come at people talking about how they live, and they don't have this, they don't have that, blah 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 blah. That person may be having a tough time that you go to their home at the time that you go. You don't know, they could just be working just to pay the bills and don't have that much. But don't go spreading their name because you feel like as though um, you know you expected to come to America and live in this posh lifestyle. Like we downsized, like I said, so I wouldn't invite people here now because it's a smaller place. My cousin came by and stayed with us a few days from Guyana. I mean, but we were outside most of the times and whatever it is, just chilling or whatever. I had a day bed in here so she could sleep on the day bed. I mean, she was comfortable, but she already knew before she came. I told her, I said, listen, we're not living, where we used to live before. So you don't have a room, you don't have all that stuff. What the kids grew up on is not what you're going to come experience, because that's not what we're doing. We're just here. It's just me and my husband. That's it. She enjoyed the beach. She enjoyed a lot of the things. We went shopping day after day. We went. We drove all the way out to the Florida Keys. We did a lot of stuff. She enjoyed it. However, what I'm saying to you is, please stop with the bashing and calling people names and putting people's homes down or whatever it is. They may not be able to afford the finest things, but they are affording whatever it is that they can. And just because you happen to live in a house back home, it doesn't mean you're doing better than they are over here. Because when you analyze the salary, it's still there is no comparison in it. So please don't do that. Appreciate people, love people, respect them. Just like you wouldn't want me saying anything bad about you and how you live, I'm sure you wouldn't want that for we don't want that for ourselves. All right. All right, so pretty much that's it. Thank you for coming on to my live. I appreciate you, and take care of yourselves until next time. So I know today I was kind of annoyed a little about this whole conversation with Guyanese, talking about us Caribbean Americans or Guyanese Americans, but certainly the conversation needed to be had, and that's just my thing, and that culture shift actually needs to be shifted right back where we have people who love and appreciate people for who they are and want to see them for who they are, not just to get something. Thank you. Bye bye.